everybody, what's going on? Happy Labor Day weekend. Happy end of the summer to everybody. Let me know if you can hear me okay. You should be able to hear me okay. Just let me know if I need to turn up a little or not, but it looks like it's doing okay. Hope you're all doing well. Thanks everybody for coming back and joining in for another live stream. It's been a month. I didn't realize it's been a month since I did the last one. I'm a little surprised that it's been that long, but it has been. I hope everybody's doing well. We're at the end of September, or end of August. Holy crap. The year's almost over. I feel like it just started. It's been really, really busy. It's been a month since we've gotten together here, so I thought this will be a good opportunity. This weekend's a little slow for me. I'm coming off a really busy week here, and next week I'm getting right back into it, so I thought, what better time than the present to catch up with all my friends here. So hope everybody's doing well. Let's get in the chat and see who's here. There's a few of you already here. Hey, Braxel, how's it going? 3-day weekend. Yes, everyone's on a 3-day weekend. Awesome, right? That's really cool. It's always nice to have a 3-day weekend. Jimmy, what's going on, brother? Exactly the distraction you need to finish out your week before the 3-day weekends. Me as well. Good. I'm glad this is a good distraction. I'm glad this is a good distraction. John Doe's here. Hey, John, what's up, buddy? Good to see you. Good evening. Or good morning, whatever you're at, wherever you are. David S.J.'s here. Hey, buddy, how you doing? Good to see you as well, as always. Audio's good. That's great. This is the mystery box. Maybe you guys can guess what it is. I'll show it to you in a little bit. I just got it yesterday. Did the unboxing video for it. You won't see the unboxing for a while. At least on, well, you may see it, no, probably going to be a while. There's so many videos that are already scheduled, that I think I have videos already on this channel already scheduled to Thanksgiving already. I have that many videos in the queue already up on YouTube. And some things might get jostled around, so some will come before others, but there is already enough content right through Thanksgiving. On the Home Recording Made Easy channel, I'm pretty much at Thanksgiving as well. Almost. Yeah, I got like, I'm like in the first week of November already. So what I'm trying to do, and what I've been trying to do over the last week or so, is I planned out all the videos for both channels till the end of the year. And I'm trying to get them all done ahead of time. I'm almost there. Just so I can free up the next few months, because I got a lot of courses I got to start creating content for. So I wanted to just I just wanted to have like 2.5 months, 3 months, where all I have to concentrate on is course creation. Some will get released this year. Some won't get released until the beginning of next year. But that's what I'm doing. So yeah, so there's a lot of stuff coming up. a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff. Dave's been guitar shopping. Not really. No, all these guitars I've had all these guitars. I just haven't displayed them. I've had them in cases. I've been playing more guitar recently, which I'm really happy about, because I got some products for Home Recording Made Easy's YouTube channel that I'm demoing for YouTube, and they're guitar related products. So it allowed me to break out the guitars, which has been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun. So yeah, so I got 3 guitars out that 2 guitars I've been playing this week quite a bit. The 2 behind me, the Telecaster and the EVH Wolfgang. Yeah. So yeah, I've been playing a lot of guitar. I've been doing I got a lot of guitar products coming up for the Home Recording Made Easy YouTube channel. But again, a lot of those won't be released, and you won't see those until at least Thanksgiving. But there's a lot of them I'm in the middle of creating to help people with recording guitars simply into their DAW at a beginner stage level, some tools to help them, and those kinds of things. So it should be really fun. I'm really excited about it because it lets me play guitar, which I really like doing. Can't tell you what's in the box yet, Braxel. Relax. We just started 4 minutes ago. We're gonna wait a little bit. Maybe some of you guys can guess. You can guess. You can do. Hey, Steven, how are you? Steven Vaughn. Hey, King, what's up, brother? Still loving the Trinoff. Oh yeah, I use it. It's right here. Right there. Right there. The Trinoff Nova. I use it every single day. Every day. I'm telling you, it is the best investment, best piece of gear investment I've made in this studio by far. Without a shadow of a doubt. I tell everyone you should have it. If you have a studio where, you know, you're dealing with more than just plugins and you have like an investment, you know, if you got a really great set of monitors and you have some gear, you know, you got thousands and thousands of dollars worth of gear and you're really trying to, you know, make your mixes sound the best they can, the Trinoff is the best piece of gear, hands down. Best piece of gear, without a shadow of a doubt. So I love it. Love it, love it, love it. Use it every day. You need to do a video on your guitars. I'm going to, you know what, John? Some of those things are going to happen on the other channel. It won't be on this channel because this channel is really, you know, mixing music analog. It's all about gear and mixing. But subscribe if you're not already to Home Recording Made Easy's YouTube channel. That's where you'll see all the guitar stuff, all the stuff for the home studio recording, mixing stuff too, but more plugins and I will do some videos for the guitars themselves as I'm demoing some of the other products. So yeah, so I'm going to be doing that. I'm going to be doing that. And I'm going to have some new guitars coming in on loan to do demos. A few here and there. That's all I'll say about it. But yeah, I will do some. But yeah, subscribe to the Home Recording Made Easy YouTube channel, and that's where you'll see that sort of stuff. Burst out that Frankenstrat. Yeah, I got the Frankie. Now that's not the $25,000 Frankie. I'm sure you know that, right? That's not that. That's the EVH, whatever it is, $1,800 one. I gotta tell you, it's a great playing guitar, man. I mean, it looks cool if it's good wall art, but I mean, it is a fantastic playing guitar. I really like it. I really, really like it a lot. I mean, if you're a Van Halen fan, you gotta have a Frankenstrat. and I'll tell you, some of the best electric guitars I ever played are those EVH Wolf, you know, that Black Wolfgang. I gotta tell you, man, if that's better than any Les Paul I've ever owned or played. That's better than any humbucker full-on rock machine guitar I've ever played is that EVH Wolfgang. Now, I used to own a lot of Wolfgangs back in the PV days. I used to play those live when I used to play in bands, and I love those. That's far better. Far better playing guitar. It's built like a brick house, man. You could throw it off a building. You're not going to move the neck. It's just a wonderful machine. Wonderful machine. Hey, James D. Cooler's here. James D. Cooler, how are you, buddy? Good to see you, James. A lot of James's music has been on this channel. More music is coming up on the other channel. Oh, which reminds me, if you are, well, you only have one more day or 2 more days for the Mixing Masterclass Volume 2, where we mixed the mixing contest for Smile. Got a lot of submissions. So I got to be listening to mixes next week, and then in a couple of weeks, post the winners and give out all that free gear. And we are doing another James D. Cooler song for the Mixing Hybrid Hard Rock course, which I'm going to start probably in 2 weeks. That'll come out sometime probably in mid to late October, I think is when that course will be released. Once I get through the mixing masterclass and the mixing contest and all of that, and everyone's got all their stuff, right around sometime October will be the Mixing Hybrid Hard Rock, which will be featuring a new original tune by James, which is just really cool. Man, what a great rock tune. You're going to really dig it. And yes, there'll be a mixing contest associated with that. We're going to be giving away some 500 series modules from Z&H, the API EQs, the 250 EQs. We'll be giving away, what else am I giving away? I got a whole list of stuff. There's going to be a couple of plugin sponsors as well. The video that you guys saw just this past week from Real Phones, you know, the headphone mixing thing. They gave us some licenses to give away for the mixing contest. Those. I also got. I don't know if it'll come out for the hard rock course, but when we do Mixing Hybrid Country, it may come out there. But I got. The whole Kit Blackbird bundle of plugins, their whole bundle, which includes the new Fairchild, which I did a video for, which is coming out in a couple of weeks. That whole bundle, they gave me 2 or 3 prize packs for that. That's like a $900 bundle now. So we're going to be giving that away. Z&H gear, the Z&H 1178 up there, that's going to be given away. Right above that, you can't see it because it's too dark, but the Z&H 8-space 500 series chassis, they have a 500 rack. That's going to be a prize as well. And there's some other stuff too. I got a whole list of stuff. So, so for mixing hybrid hard rock, the James D. Cooler tune, and then mixing hybrid country. Now, mixing hybrid country probably won't come out till January. Yeah, I think around January. We'll be giving away gear for that too. Oh, the Stam Audio API preamps, those are going to be prize giveaways as well. Trying to think what else. There's some other stuff too. Some things I can't really mention yet because I'm told I'm not supposed to talk about it yet. But trust me, we're gonna have killer prizes. So for every mixing course that I do from now until the end of all of next year, whether it's at Home Recording Made Easy or whether it's here, there's going to be a mixing contest associated with it. And depending on what level it is and what it is will depend on the prize pack. If it's more if it's an in the box kind of a thing, it'll be more plug-in prizes. If it's over here on the console and it's the hybrid stuff, it'll be mostly hardware gear. And then in some, there'll be a combination of both. So I got a lot of companies that are very generous, that are willing to give up gear, plugins and stuff that are donating to the cause, which is great, which is great. There'll be an Audioscape piece here or there we're going to be giving away as well. So anyway, yeah, that's what's coming up. So make sure, man, make sure you stay tuned. Stay tuned, because it'll be really cool. Is it from Audioscape? I don't know. You'll have to wait, Braxel, until we get a chance to look at it. Can't wait till they roll out the black box update. The Trinoff leveled up my ATCs in a big way. Okay, you got a Trinoff. Great, man. Which one you have? You must have the Nova. Do you have the new one? The ATCs, right? Right? If you got ATCs in your studio, if you're working in a situation like that, then if you want to get the maximum out of your mixes, man, get into room correction. And I just tell people, if you're running ATCs, you're running high-end focals, you're running, a rack with 15 pieces of hardware, there's no reason why you don't have a Trinoff. No reason. Unless you haven't heard it yet, you're just not convinced. But I always tell everyone, now that Sweetwater sells that Trinoff, see, before you couldn't buy it from Sweetwater up until the new one. The Novas are there. I'm telling you, buy it, put it on your Sweetwater credit card, put it in your studio, and if it isn't everything that I've told you that it is, send it back to give you back your money. I'm telling you, you will not return it. You won't. You will not return it. If you once you plug that thing in and calibrate your room, and I have 2 videos on this channel, I'm sure Steven knows, on how to calibrate, how to go through the process. It's really simple. I'm telling you, you won't return it. It's as simple as that. But if you don't like it, send it back. There's no risk. I'm telling you. Hey, Robert, what's up, brother? Jimmy says his mix is already in. Yep, I got your mix for the contests. We'll be listening to it next week. Hey, Chris, what's up, buddy? Good to see you. Hey, James, how are you? Good to see you. Thanks for joining. Thanks for everybody coming out on such short notice. I only decided to do this today. So I'm glad that a lot of you are going to join. This will be great. So if you got any questions about anything, shoot, want to talk about gear, whatever you guys want to talk about, I'm here for you. That's why I'm here. You got the Nova, great. Smoke Sonar works in Sound ID. I did a video on that too. Now I did a video on my old Trinoff ST2 Pro prior to the Nova, and I compared it to Sonar Works, a reference Sound ID. I did a whole video talking about the differences and what I was hearing in the room. When I first did that comparison, I was listening, going back and forth. I was taking detailed notes before I made the video, so I could really try to describe to you what the differences are. And it's big difference, big difference. And really most of that is to do, I'm sure you know, Stephen, the trim off fixes your phase issues, which those other software programs do not. That's the big thing that it does. But there's so much more fine tuning and tweaking you can do with a trim off that you can't do in those software packages. But again, if even if you're working all in the box and you don't have a lot of gear or a lot of budget, and you can't spend $5-6 grand on a trim off, I get it. You at least do SonarWorks or IK Multimedia Arc. At the very least, do that. That will help you as well. And then if you ever get to a point where you're ready to go to the next level, just know that the trade-off is a step or two above those other products. But you should at least have something, I think. John Life, hey, how are you? Hey, Dave, can you please review the Stam Audio SA16 summing box? I don't have it. If Stam and Josh want to send it to me, I'd be happy to do it. But I don't have access to everything with them, and Stam Audio is always, always a challenge to keep up with their production demands. So even if I were to order one of those, it'd probably take 1.5 years to get it. So we've talked about summing boxes here before. I'm not a huge fan of summing boxes. Not that that one's not great. I'm sure it's great. If it's made by Stam Audio, I'm sure it's an awesome piece of gear. But depending on your budget and what you plan on spending on a summing box, we've talked about it before, I would purchase other different gear before I would do a summing box. Oh, you got to be real careful with Sweetwater. They added 2% an upfront fee for financing. It's in the very small fine print. Okay, so 0% financing is not 0%. Okay. Well, that's not Sweetwater. That's the bank that they use. That's, what is that? Saucony? I think that's their bank. It's not Sweetwater. It's the bank. All the credit cards are raised all their fees and they're putting up all their stuff. But even so, 2% is nothing. 2% is nothing. For 30, say you can get 36 months or whatever the Sweetwater financing is, depending on what you buy, 2%? How can you beat 2%? But yeah, no, that's good info, Braxel. Yeah, that's, thank our banking industry for that, because it's not Sweetwater doing that, it's the bank. Vintage King, I use them too. When I bought my original turn-off, I used them. I like Vintage King. Vintage King's great too. Vintage King's great too. All your videos were very helpful in making my decision on the turn-off. Oh, great. Awesome. Okay, so you watched the videos and it helped you make a purchase. Awesome, man. Good. I'm glad it was helpful, and I'm glad that it helped your ATCs and you're feeling good about your purchase. That's wonderful. That's why the channel's here, man. That's exactly why I do this channel. It's for no other reason. It's not because I make money on it. That's for damn sure. I do it to do exactly what happened for you, to try to help, to share my learning experience. Pardon me, as I've learned about hybrid and analog and all this gear over the last 3 years, and then to bring what I've learned to you guys to say, hey, this is what I've learned. If it helps you, great. So if it helps you, awesome. When you have a mix, for example, with 3 buses, drums. Oh, did you ask another question, James, that I missed? Because I don't understand what you just wrote. I don't understand your question, James. Did I miss something you were asking before it? Retype your entire question. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's the bank, right, Dave? That's Sweetwater. That's also Vintage King too. That's yeah. Yeah, Saucony is how you say it, or however you say it. They're all, I know because I have a bunch of them. They're for Vintage King, they're for Sweetwater, they're for Zounds, they're for Musicians Friends. It's all the same. Oh, no problem, Bobby. I hope your health problems are more important than, and your financial problems are more important than any membership. I hope you're doing okay. Don't ever apologize, man. Interest-free for 36 months is almost unheard of. Now, no complaint. Yeah, again, for 2%, Hey, Bix by E, good to see you. Thanks for joining. Ken says he just bought a PreSonus Quantum HD2 and a new guitar. How do you like the new Quantums? How do you like them? I'm interested to know those new, all those new Quantums they put out. They put out a little tiny couple of desktop ones, a couple of rack ones. I'm sure they're pretty good. I'm sure they're pretty good. Braxel says, will that 2% really affects me because I have to spend my advantage to delay to pay up front. I normally pay them off way before they do. Okay, cool, man. No, I get it. It's just options, right? It's just different options. What pieces of gear in your studio can you not live it out? Well, honestly, to me, again, the monitoring system, including the trim off and the console, those are the things that make all this stuff really work. The gear behind me, 50% of it could be sold tomorrow, and I would still make great sounding records with whatever was left. I have way too much gear, and it's because I've spent the last 2.5 years just experimenting and buying stuff and trying stuff and seeing what I like, what I don't like, and that kind of stuff. But honestly, on a mix, I barely use a third of that stuff on every mix. Now every mix is a little different, and I might choose different pieces, but I got way more gear than what I need. So what's to me, the stuff that makes this studio that I love the most? The console is the biggest thing to the sounds. The monitoring system, which includes the focals and the trim off. And then if you wanted to know, well, what one or two pieces of hardware, stuff on the master bus, that would be the most important thing to me. Which would be right now my Stam Audio Pultec, the master bus transformer by Neve. Those are two I would never sell. And then all you really got to give me is maybe an 1176, an LA2, and the V Comp. That's all I need. Maybe a few other pieces. That's it. So that's the most important stuff to me. But I love all the stuff. I use all of it at one point or another. But I don't use a lot of the stuff that's in that racks on a regular basis. Well, that answers your question. Okay, Ken, yeah, let us know. I want to know what that, next time we do a live stream, how those Quantums are working for you. Evening, Eric, how are you? Well, $5,000 purchase is $100. I don't know about you, but I'm not in the mood to throw away $100. With all the gear you got, Braxel, man, you're not fooling, you're not joshing any of us. With all the gear you have, you're worried about $100? Are you serious? I get it. If you got the cash, right, and you could pay for it all and not need to finance it, then you don't have to pay the $100. I hear you. But, if you're spending $5,000 on a piece of equipment in your studio and you're worried about $100, you may have to start rethinking that a little. Right? Because what happens if you took that $5,000 and just put it in a high yield savings account for the 36 months that you could finance it for at Sweetwater? You'd make way more than $100, by the way. If you really want to get nerdy and do math, I like doing that stuff. When mixing 3 buses, as an example, you send them all to a mixdown bus? Do you send the effects channels as well, or do you leave them on the main output? When mixing 3 buses, as an example, are you talking about on the console? You send them all to a mixdown bus? I don't understand. I guess, James, I'm not understanding the way you're wording it. I'm not understanding the question. When I'm mixing 3 buses, so like on the console, if I had 3 buses here in the center section, you send them all to a mixdown bus? Do you send the effects channel as well, or do you leave them on the main output? I don't understand your question. I'm sure everyone else does, and I'm an idiot. But I don't understand the question. I'm sorry. Gorgeous Telly in the back. Never asked you about the amps you're using, or do you Kemper Axe effects in that way? Here, because whatever I do recording here is only for myself. I don't track bands or artists or of any kind. So I do everything right now. I do everything digitally. I had a Kemper for a long time. I've used all the modelers. The Kemper's one of the better ones right now. I've been demoing to get ready for some video work on my other channel, the Fender Tone Master Pro, which is a brilliant multi-effects unit that sounds amazing. So when I'm recording here, it's that way. It's either through something like ToneX or Amplitude for plugins, but more recently, the Fender Tone Master Pro. That thing's a killer box for an all-in-one solution that sounds great to me. So I don't use amps in the studio anymore. When I did way back in the day, I had a collection of tube amps and cabinets like every other gearhead. I had everything from, I've had Marshall JCM series 800s. I've had many PV 5150s. I've had EVH 5150s. I've had Friedmans. I've had Fenders, the Blues Deluxes, and a treasure chest full of pedals and effects. I did all of that. And then once I stopped tracking real bands, I got rid of all that stuff. And even when I was at one time gigging out with cover bands, I was using a Line 6 Helix for the longest time with in-ears. So much easier than dragging around a bunch of old analog gear to clubs. But yeah, so that's what I'm using. So right now I'm using, and stuff that'll be coming out at Home Recording Made Easy sometime towards the end of the year, will all be done with the Fender Tone Master Pro. And I'm going to do videos on that unit as well. It's a great unit, by the way. If you're looking for a real easy, flexible, super easy to use, great sounding thing, it's great. I'm sorry, James, I don't understand what you're asking me. I understand effects on a reverb. I don't understand the routing question. You have to be more specific. Well, let me just tell you what I do here with that stuff, and then maybe it'll answer your question. If it doesn't, you can retype. So when I'm working on a console, everything in that DAW, and I mean everything, every audio track, every effect, everything has got to leave the DAW through the interface and come out to the desk and then go back in, everything. So single channels will come out to single faders. And then if I'm going to bus stuff, I would do it here. I have 8 stereo buses here. I can route things to the buses here. If there's effects, typically they're with plugins, reverbs and delays, and those too have to be routed out to either a pair of faders that I could either route them out to a pair of short faders and blend them, or more times than not, I'll like on a lead vocal channel, for example, I'll send in the box that lead vocal channel to an effects channel or an aux in the DAW on a reverb or delay, and then I'll route both of those tracks out to a single fader here and I'll blend it in the box. That's usually how I'll do it. And then sometimes, because when you do that, what that means is if you're routing, let's say, a reverb to the same fader on the desk as you are the audio track, whatever EQ you put on that track, the lead vocal in this example, you're also then applying that EQ to the reverb, which most times for me is okay. But if I didn't want to do that, I would just use an EQ in the box on that reverb to compensate for that. So it's a little bit of a workaround, but it works. Does that answer your question? I hope it does. Oh, maybe David knows what James is asking. Are you asking whether or not you route your effect returns to buses or the mains? If that's what you're asking, it's the main. Usually. He's right. David's right. If that's what you're asking, David has answered it. If that's not what you're asking and I answered your question, then okay. You bought the PreSonus lot to live stream. I'll do a review on my thoughts on it. Oh, okay, cool. You bought the PreSonus to, oh, you mean the Quantum to live stream? Does that have a live streaming component in it? Does it? I don't think it does it? Maybe it does. I don't know. I don't know it. I haven't used it. Okay, good. You got your question answered. All right, David S.J. came to the rescue. He figured out what I wasn't able to. Braxel says, I love the Quad Cortex and the Tone X. I have them both when not using my real amps. I've never tried the Quad Cortex, but I do have a Tone X. I'm not a big fan of the pedal, but the software is really good. And now the Tone X software will work with their Amplitude 5. You can use the Tone X inside of Amplitude, which, you know, gives you more. That's, to me, out of all the software plugins, guitar emulate, all the software stuff, you know, plugin wise that I've used, that is probably my favorite. Amplitude 5 using with Tone X. I really like that. They got a lot. I mean, they got so many amps and effects, and I mean, it's way overkill for a guy like me. Some people, they got to have 10 billion amps, and that's cool. And I think even like the Quad Cortex has some ridiculous amount of stock amps that come with it, number of amps, which is great. But for me, that's just too many choices. I'm not that kind of a player. I need 4 or 5 sounds, that's it. But those are really cool. Even the Fender Tone Master Pro, which gets a lot of criticism online by the real, you know, by the real dedicated guitar YouTube channels, which I'm not a guitar YouTube channel, but we do some guitar stuff. But the guys that are really into this stuff and that have all the modelers and compare them all, a lot of them are pretty critical about the Fender Tone Master Pro because it's the newest one on the market, I think, at this time. And it has the least amount of amp models out of all the main players. But even the Tone Master Pro, as I'm going through it and learning it to get ready to make some content, has way more stuff than I'll ever use. I don't know how many amps it has in it, but it's got, I don't know, 40 or 50. I mean, it's got more than I will ever use. So for me, I kind of like that it's got a little less options because it just makes it easier to build a sound or build a few rigs, and you don't have to page through hundreds and hundreds of things. But, you know, to each their own, I suppose. The SSL has effects buses separate from the buses and the mains. They route back to the mains. That's right. That's right. David's right. So there's 4 stereo effects returns here. We're only using one stereo one, and that's for the Audioscape XL305 Reverb. So basically what that means is that there's an aux pot on every channel, and you can dial in that reverb on every channel, and then there's a main here, a main level or volume, if you will. And I use that on every single mix. Every single mix that Audioscape Reverb is on, 80% of the tracks. All the time. All right, good. Dave's helped out James. That's awesome. Thank you, Dave. Did you see the MXR Randy Rhoads pedal? I did. Oh, you got lucky and paid the normal price and bought it up 3,200, made selling it for $650 on Reverb. Really? Oh boy, I did see it. I have no use for it, but I saw it because I like the little polka dot thing. I like the Randy Rhoads thing. That's cool. Oh, loopback. Oh, you're talking about in the Quantum. All right, they have the loopback feature for lives. Yeah, a lot of these interfaces now have that. But yeah, like PreSonus stuff, I'm sure is fantastic, Ken. I can't imagine that it's not. I've used PreSonus interfaces for many, many times over the years, and I've never had any issues with them. You know what's really good for live streaming too? If you already bought it, so it doesn't matter to you. But if you're into live streaming and podcasting, if that's part of your gig too, one of the things that I use on my other rig over there is the Rodecaster Pro, the Rode Rodecaster Pro 2. That's an amazing little interface, little mini mixer for live streaming, podcasting, a lot of flexibility and routing and stuff. That's another option if you ever need to take a look at something like that. I've been using those for a couple of years. I like those quite a bit. How are you using the NBT combined with your STEM EQ? Are you using the compressor on the NBT? Not usually. So the way I'm using the compressor in the console. What I'm using the MBT for mostly is the silk and the widener. Because I have the Stam Audio Pultec as the EQ, and because it also has, you know, it has not only the low and the high, but the mid section, I really don't need to use the EQ on the MBT. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I'll change it up a little, but I don't normally use the compressor on it. I've used it, it's cool. But I use the compressor on the desk mostly. But I love the MBT for the silk and for the stereo widener, and just because it's got, you know, all the transformers in it, just really, I love the way that thing sounds. So that's how I'm currently using it. That's right, Braxel. No converter talk tonight. Unless you're absolutely brand new here and you really have a question because you're in the middle of buying something, we'll answer it. But we're not going to do converter. We're not going to do our typical, let's talk about converters tonight. Unless it's, like I said, unless it's someone you're new here and you're about to buy something and you have a real question around it, then certainly I'd love to help you. Thank you, James, so much. It's very nice of you for the super chat. Thank you so much. Anyone else is getting something out of this live stream tonight, you want to help the cause, feel free to hit the super chat. I really do appreciate that. It's very nice of you. The Tone Master Pro does not have capture feature. Right, it does not. Yeah, so some people don't like it because you can't capture your own amplifier, much like the Tone X or the Kemper. But for me, again, for someone like me, that doesn't matter because I don't have any amps, so I don't care. And to me, if I had their JCM 800 is just as good as any JCM 800 I've ever owned. But yeah, I know in the Quad Cortex too, I understand some people don't like it because they want to capture their amp collection. I totally get that. But what I'm doing around the Tone Master Pro, again, is for the other channel, but is that I'm coming from it at a different angle. Because if you watch the videos on all these modelers, all these guitar stuff, on all the guitar channels, there's nothing they've all said it all a million times. Everyone's demoed it. Everyone has gone through every single feature and their likes and their dislikes, and that's all cool. My whole little series of videos for that, it'll probably be 2 or 3 videos. Because for me, in my opinion, it's the perfect modeler. The title and the thumbnail is going to be for old guitar players, guys over the age of 45 or 50. And the reason why I'm doing that, just so you know, I may as well say it because we're just chatting, right? So I do a lot of private one-on-one Zoom coaching with some of you tonight. I've done it with, but I do lots of sessions with students, mostly over at the Home Recording Easy channel, Made Easy channel, because they're usually folks that are just setting up their home studios and they have all kinds of technical questions and gear problems and getting things to work together and the basics, the real basics, right? They're just starting out. And the large majority of that demographic of the people that I coach are all over the age of 50, 55 and into the retirement years. These are cats that grew up in the analog days, that recorded in studios with all this crap. Guys like Braxel and a lot of us here that, you know, when we first started playing, had our amps on our pedal boards and you stuck microphones in front of cabinets and that's how you recorded. Fast forward to 2024 and these guys are all retiring now. They all got more free time on their hands. They're getting back into making music and they just don't have the home environment to record big loud amplifiers, or they've sold off all their gear. They want something simple and easy, but they're intimidated by the guitar, most of the guitar modelers and the plugins, because as we were saying a little earlier, they're so feature rich. There's so many things it can do. It can be overwhelming. Things like the Helix and the Quad Cortex, where you got all these little icons on screens and you have to do a bunch of menu dives to get the stuff. Or like I was saying earlier, you gotta fumble through 250 amplifier sounds to get an amplifier that you want. For a person who is new, who's coming out of that analog world, that's a little bit more, let's just say, technologically challenged, right? They come from a different era and now they're dipping their toe into this. The one thing that I've heard over and over again about guitar players is that they can't get a good sound from these plugins. They can't get a good sound from the modelers. It overwhelms them. you know, they just can't figure it out. And so when the Tone Master Pro came across my radar, what I liked about that, and I've used the Helix, the Tonex, the Kemper. The only one I haven't used, I've used an Axe Effects. I've never used a Quad Cortex, but I've used all the others. And I got along with them okay, but there was a pretty steep learning curve. But the one thing I liked about the Tone Master Pro, for any of you guitar players out there, is that it kind of fills that gap. It is super intuitive and easy because it's very graphical. So and because the way the foot switches are like the Quad Cortex, where the foot switches turn into actually amp controls. They're the encoders for the actual amp and the effects. It's a much easier learning curve for someone that's coming from that old school world where you don't have to go fumbling through thousands of amps. Everything is like, if you can use an iPad or a smartphone, you can use this Tone Master Pro. The stuff sounds really good. It has limited options, means that there's not 4,000 options in the thing, which is great, but there's enough options for most people, at least for guys like me anyway. And it's super easy to use. Super easy to use. I never had to open up a manual, look at a video. I mean, it was so incredible. They took the best of the Helix, the Quad Cortex, and they kind of put it together. So it is a really nice unit. I know I'm going on about it. It's not a sponsored video. No one's paying me to make the video. It's just, out of all the modelers I tried, once I tried this one, I said, wow, this is a perfect solution for a lot of my students that were complaining and having trouble with the whole guitar recording thing at home. So that's how this all kind of started. And that's why I'm doing the videos, to help people, to show people that you can get into something like this and it is super easy and you don't have to feel overwhelmed and have this real steep learning curve when you're trying to learn how to record guitar. If you're an older folk like me. So I hope that makes sense. But it doesn't have all the features that some of the more other modelers have, but that's a good thing in this case. Anyway, let's move on. Hey, Steve, what's up? Hey, Dave, if you could only have one on the drum bus, which would you choose? The Gain Lab Empress, the Stam Pultec tube version? Can't afford the Stam solid state, and why? On the drum bus. So now I've used both of those products on drum bus. If I had to pick one or the other, they both, well, see, the thing is, here's the thing. The Empress EQ is the Empress EQ is more of a modern sound. It's the Pultec, but it sounds a little more modern to me, if that makes any sense. Whereas the Stam Audio Pultec sounds like that classic vintage Pultec, which is great on a drum bus, by the way. But that Empress EQ, when I started putting the Stam Audio on my master bus for the last few mixes, we've only had it a little bit. I haven't had it very long. And I moved the Empress EQ to the drum bus. Man, because you have the additional tube circuit that you can take in and out, you have additional where you can use bell curves or some shelving, different EQ curves, some selectable stuff on the Empress that you don't get with the Pultec. The Pultec is the classic Pultec, but you have tube or solid state. If I had to choose one, and I was recommending it to you, I would say the Gain Lab, because it's a little more flexible than the Pultec. It's cheaper than the Pultec, considerably cheaper, unless they've raised their prices. I paid $2,000 I paid for that. And I've said it 100 times on this channel. That Empress EQ for $2,000 is the best EQ for that at that price point I've heard. I'm sure there's others out there, but to me, that's killer. And for a while, even before that, I was using the API 5500 on my drum bus, and that's killer too, man. but that's over $3 grand as well. So if I only could have one, it would be the AudioLabs on the drums, because it's a little more flexible than the Pultec is. And it sounds a little bit more modern to me. And I like that for drums. But I've used the stem audio on a drum bus on a couple of mixes. Man, it sounds great. It sounds great. I hope that helps. You can't go wrong with either one. Hey, Dave, quick question concerning the MBT. Sure, I find that the EQ is limited on it. Are you using any additional EQ on the stereo bus? Yes, you must have just came in. I just talked about that a few minutes ago. So I'm not using the EQ on the MBT at all. Right now I'm using the Stam Audio Stereo Pultec. But prior to owning that, I was using the AudioLabs Empressor EQ, which is fantastic. The MBT EQ is a much like it's a very gentle kind of a shelving EQ, which is cool. I just don't really use it. It's not that it doesn't sound good. I have used it. I have tried it. It does sound good. But that's what I use. So right now on my stereo bus is the Stam Audio Pultec. But that could change. It could change, but right now I'm really enjoying that. Hey, Mike, how are you? Hey, Dave, is this at EVH? It is. It's the, this is a 2023? No, 2022? I don't know what year it is. It's in the last few years. This is the Black Stealth USA model. Whatever year they first started putting the kill switch in, that's the year that this is. Again, probably for rock music, man, probably one of the best built guitars I've ever played. This thing is this thing kicks ass, man. If you're into rock stuff, not that you can't do anything other than rock. It's got stainless steel frets, which never wear out. I'll tell you what, the stainless steel frets were the one thing that took me a little getting used to when I first got it. And I thought, oh boy, am I gonna like this thing? It took a little bit. But after about, I don't know, a few hours of playing it over a few days, no problem at all. It doesn't bother me at all. And when I go back to like a Telly or anything else that has regular jumbo frets, nickel frets, it's not a weird kind of a transition for me. I just got used to it. But aside from that, and again, what's great about the stainless steel is you never have to refret the guitar. But just, it's one of the best guitars I've ever owned and ever played. They're pricey. But I love it. But yeah, it's an EVH Wolfgang, a USA model. So, cool guitar. Oh, since you bought the Cranborn, oh, you got that finally. I cannot live without it. It does a cool thing to the mix that you may think it's not doing until you take it away. Oh, yeah. So you got it. Yeah, I remember the last time you were still waiting for it, right? Last time we all kind of got together. Yeah, that it looks like a killer piece, man. It does. That's, again, I don't need it. I got so much. I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you, at one point, there's going to be a big sale of gear in this place. I'm going to pick the pieces that I really need and I use all the time, and then everything else is going to go sooner or later. It is. Because there's some of this gear I don't use a lot, and it's not because it's not great. But it's okay because if I knew over the last couple of years, my goal was to get my hands on as much stuff as I wanted to try to see what I like and what I don't like. Because the only way you know is unless you try this stuff. And it's all great. But then you start, the more you mix, the more you figure out, well, okay, this stuff I use every single time and I love it. And I'm not changing it. It don't matter what style of music I'm working on. Those are the pieces I'm keeping. Everything else will eventually go away. And it means which means my guess would be at least a third of that gear won't be here in a year. And it's not because it's not great. It's because I don't need it. And I really want to focus on the mixing and the creative and locking into a sound instead of constantly changing gear in and out just because you have it. That's exactly what I don't want to do. So anyway, but that HE2 I'm sure is fucking awesome. Excuse my language, but I just, if they sent it to me to try it, just so I could demo it and send it back, I would try it. But I don't need another stereo EQ. I don't. I got 3 of them. I don't need them. But I'm sure it's awesome, man. You're 57. Okay, you're older than me. Great. I'm not the oldest guy here. That's awesome. You're not much older than me. What do I think about the louder Liftoff Silver Bullet 2? I've never used it. I know of it, but I've never used it. Modeler's got so many features and crap on them, it can be overwhelming. It can be, especially for some of my students. Believe me, some of them have a hard time just plugging in the audio interface and getting their DAW to recognize it. And that when and I understand, if you come from that generation and you've never really gotten into computers and stuff, a lot of this stuff can really be frustrating. So yeah, put an Axe-Fx in front of one of them, and they'll lose their minds. It's just too much. It's just too much. They just want to plug in, get a great sound, but be able to do it silently without having all the big cabinets and all the things that come along with amps and cabinets. So anyway, but they're cool. Modelers have come a long way, man. Jason says, hey, Jason, how are you, buddy? You used a Helix rack in the studio in the HX Stomp Live. Yeah. But you're a techie geek and you like messing with everything. I can also easily relamp with Helix Native. Yeah, I used the Helix floor, the big floor unit for a couple of years, and I liked it. I'm pretty I can learn those modelers and I can use them and get pretty proficient with them. The technology doesn't really scare me. But I used that for a couple of years, and at the time, I really liked it. But yeah, there's a learning curve. But I'll tell you, I love using that Fender Tone Master Pro much more than I ever liked using a Helix. It's so much easier to use. And again, there's a whole bunch of guitar channels out there that compare the sound of this one to the sound of this one, and then they compare the model to the actual amp, and that's all cool. That's all cool. They're all so darn close now, and they all sound great to me. I'm not that much of a guitar tone snob. I mean, I know what I like, but I'm not that particular. But some people are really particular, and I understand that. But yeah, the Helix stuff is great. They've been around a while, man. Hey, Dave, are you talking about me? It took me a while to warm up to the digital world. I don't know. I'm not talking about you specifically. Recording, and I haven't really found an amp plugin I really like, but I believe I'm getting better with all this. No, not you specifically, John, but I'm telling you, I got a dozen, probably 6 to 10 students that are just like what you just said. And some of them really struggle. And so I'm hoping that these videos, when I do them, will help them. And now when I talk to them about these things, I'm starting to turn them on to the Tone Master. And even that, they're a little overwhelmed. I mean, because it's still a piece of technology. And you still have to go through and pick your amp and pick your cabinet and all that stuff. But it's way easier than, for someone like you, John, it's way easier than using like a Quad Cortex or like an Axe-Fx. Although those are not difficult units to use. I've used the Axe-Fx. It's not. But you got to be willing to spend the time and really, like Jason said, you got to get in there and be willing to fiddle a little bit. The one thing I liked about the Tone Master Pro is that there's no fiddling. You pull up a Marshall Plexi, and you see it on the screen. You have the little knobs that turn the amp controls, and it's just like using a real amp. And to me, there's no fiddling. The way you would dial in the real thing is the way you dial in this unit, and it just sounds good. At least to me, it does. Sounds good enough. So John, make sure you subscribe over at Home Recording Made Easy's YouTube channel, because You'll see those videos. And I'm going to do a bunch of videos showing how easy it is, and that's going to be the angle for the old cat that's struggling with this stuff, that wants a real easy solution, but all the conveniences of the digital guitar thing. This might be the product to look at. Might be, at least for me. So anyway. Hey Chris, I'm 29 and using analog along with plugins, as well as recording real amps, along with using a Helix floor. Everything coming out these days sounds so damn good. They're almost interchangeable. I agree, man. I agree. I think, again, I'm not that much of a guitar tone snob. It's not snob in a bad way. Like, there's, guys that are really into guitar tone, man, and they're really particular, and that's really cool. Not wrong with that. And they want that thing to sound identical to the amps. And they could tell the difference. A lot of times I can't. I just know if it sounds right to me. And to me, a lot of the modelers today, more than the sound, is they feel right. There is a feeling with your hands and the strings and the way a real amp reacts to the actual playing, that up until recent years, the modelers kind of lost. It didn't feel right. Now they feel right to me. They do. Even the Helix did. It just felt right. It felt like I was playing an amp, which was cool. And the sounds to me were good. Back in the older days when modeling first came around, you could tell instantly if the guitar, it was a modeler. You can instantly tell it had that high-end fizz. It didn't have that growl in the bark. But now, technology. Jimmy says he resembles the old remark. I more than resemble it, man. I am it. I love the Neural DSP plugins like the Parallax and the Dark Glass Ultra. I use it on bass. Oh, cool. It's one of my secret weapons when I use a DI. Oh, excellent. I've never used their plugins. I've heard of them. Hello, Dave from Thailand. Hey, have a nice day. Thank you for joining. Dave's a youngster. Dave's the old man in the room tonight. No, I don't think you're the oldest one here. We're all getting up there. Stam EQ on the mix bus, gain lab on the vocal. Yeah, that would be, you could do that too, man. I'm telling you, you could put either one of those EQs on anything and it will sound good. Anything. Yeah, gain lab you could do on vocals if you wanted to. Sure. Sure. Yeah. Tell me about it, Braxel. Tell me about it. That's music keeping you young, my friend. Music keeping you young. James, you're still a baby, 33. You kidding? That's really nice. Love me some EVH, and I'm not a guitar player. Yeah, I love the EVH stuff. I mean, who doesn't like EVH? Cannot wait to get your hands on the West Audio 2BQ. Oh, you're buying that too? So you go out and you buy all this stuff and then you're worried about a $100 financing charge? That's a $6,000 unit. You can run it with or without tubes. Oh, you can? I didn't know that. No, that's pretty interesting. You can run it as a plug-in. It looks like you're using the Fab filter. Yeah, well, I know you can use it as a plug-in. All the West Audio gears like that, but I did not know you can run it solid state or with tubes. Wow, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. That looks like a killer unit, man. Killer unit. That's like a $6,000 EQ. That ain't coming here anytime soon. Unless West Audio wants to send it to me as a demo. Robert 66. How long have you been running your main YouTube channel? Did you enjoy it? How long have I been running? Well, my main YouTube channel, actually, funny, it's where Labor Day weekend, right? Labor Day weekend of 2014 is when I launched the Home Recording Made Easy brand. Both the YouTube channel and the website. Launched Labor Day weekend 2014. So this is like my 10-year anniversary. Now, I was doing YouTube a little bit before that, under a different channel. I started YouTube around 2012, late 2012, 2013. But at that time, the channel was just my name. Nobody watched it. I didn't know what I was doing. But in 2014 is when I started it. And then this channel, which is a secondary channel, started in 2021. When we bought the SSL, May or June of 21, I think is when this channel started. So do I enjoy it? I do. I mean, you gotta enjoy it to do it, because there's no money in it. Unless you're a massive YouTube channel with hundreds of thousands of subscribers or more, there's no money in it, really. Pennies. So the only reason why I do YouTube is because I enjoy it, and I like helping people, and I like meeting people like you. That's why I do it. There's no other reason to do it because there's nothing in it financially for me. Zero. I mean, there's a little. I do make a little ad money. I don't mean completely zero. But when you look at how much ad money I make between my two YouTube channels, comparatively to how many hours I spend a week working on YouTube content, you're making way less than minimum wage. So you have to do it because you like it. It's the only way. So I do enjoy it. I do. Preview of gear you would keep. Top 10 picks. Oh, geez, I don't know. We got some new gear sitting right here that I'm sure I'm going to love. We'll talk about that in a minute. Top 10 picks. Oh, man. Off the top of my head, the Master Bus Transformer, the Stem Audio Pultec, the AudioLabs Empressor EQ, the Nova, my two distressors, that's 6. The 76A by Audioscape, 7. The LA2A, the V Comp, that's 8 and 9. And the NG Bus Compressor by West Audio, that's 10. If I had to pick those 10, those would be if I had only those 10 pieces, I could mix records at a professional level like I do now, and nobody would know the difference, and it would sound great. It would sound great. Largely in part because the console's the biggest part of the sound. It just is. It doesn't work like a normal EQ? Oh, how does it work? You got an HX stomp and it's great, but at this time I get more out of the quad cortex. Yeah, the HX stomp is that little unit, right? That's kind of a cool little unit if you just need like 1 or 2 sounds and you need something really, really tiny and portable. That's a great little unit. That's been around a long time too. Bobby. Mike says, when I started digital recording 10 years ago, you hated it. I learned more about computers than I ever cared to know. Yeah, welcome to the club. And now I feel like I have to update my knowledge every year due to the tech change. Yeah. Yep. You do have to kind of know the technology. You know, it is. That's part of the problem, right? Dave has the Headrush pedal board. Those are nice too. I've never used one, but those are nice too. Those are popular as well. Wish you had the experience and the knowledge that you have now. No kidding. You say you're not a guitar snob, but man, you can dial up great guitar tones in your mixes. Oh, thanks, man. Thanks, man. Well, usually the mixes that I do, the guitars that are recorded, the tones are from whoever recorded them. I didn't create those tones, but I appreciate the compliment. You know, if you have a great guitar, if you can record a halfway decent guitar tone, it's going to sound great in the mix, man. So, yeah. So I'm not really, but I mean, I'm not a tone snob that I'm not, like, there's people that are really, really particular, man, and they can pick out the nuances, man. I've just never gotten into it that much. I just like a big rock tone for me personally. And some of my favorite amps that I used to use were the Friedman stuff is expensive, but I And then I used to love and have owned all the PV5150s, man. When that amp came out, that was the amp I gigged with for years, the PV5150. With a 412 cabinet with Celestin greenbacks. For me, that was all I needed. And now the EVH amps are great too, but I don't have the actual amps. I just use the models of them. And those are, and again, all those, the PV and the EVH and the Friedmans, they're all just hot-rodded Marshalls, kind of, and that was great for me. But yeah, thanks though. Yeah, and the mixes, if I get good guitar recordings, like by James D. Cooler, his guitar recordings are always great. When you watch me mix his stuff, there's not much to do to it. I don't do much. I just leave the tone the way it is. Sometimes a little EQ if I need to get it to pop a little. But aside from that, I don't usually compress it all that much, especially if it's distorted guitars. And let the console do the work. James says, speaking of James, I love the technology too, but it's like TikTok. Too many plugins, too many modelers, every day, new brand with the best sounds, etc. It's getting boring to me. Well, yeah, and it is. Well, part of the problem is that all these companies, they all got to come out with new stuff for us to buy. So there's always a new latest and greatest thing. And you're right. You could be chasing that stuff your whole life, man. You could be chasing it your whole life. And in the end, when do you stop? And you can get too many options. I know that was the problem, when you talk about plugins, that was the problem for me with plugins. I had so many darn plugins. Again, I forgot which ones I had after a while. And that's part of what I was talking about with even some of the gear. I've gotten so much gear now, way more gear than I ever thought I was going to have. That I'm starting to go right back to, there's too much of it. There's too many options. I don't need all of it. I don't. Now, a lot of it, I've been very fortunate to work with people like Stam Audio and Audioscape and people who have given me gear to work with them and trade services, videos for some gear. So a lot of the reason why I have a lot of this stuff is because of those relationships, which is great. And it's given me the opportunity to try a bunch of stuff, which is great because, but more than half of the gear that you see behind me, I paid for. So some of it was just, you don't know what you like until you try it, until you use it, until you really get into this workflow. And then you start to figure out, what do you like and what do you don't like? And then everything else you don't need. It's no different than plugins or anything else. Everyone is working with the same goal, different roads. Yep, you got it, Dave. Ken's 59. All right, I'm not the oldest guy here tonight. This is great because my back's been killing me today. I'm starting to feel old. And my first home studio was a Panasonic 4-track. Oh, yeah. My first one was a Tascam Porta Studio. Yes, 10-year anniversary this weekend. I didn't even realize it until the other day. 10 years. Home Recording Made Easy's been on the map. Can't believe it. Feel like it was just yesterday when I started it. Oh, sorry, you guys are talking. Big issue with a home studio my big issue in my home studio is the room. I got a half Marshall 70 stack in here taking up space from the 80s and a boatload of guitars. You've grown out of your space, man. Yeah, the Auto Align 2 is a great plugin, James. I'm glad you got hip to it. Yeah, there's a lot of those kind of utility tools that are really important. But the general run-of-the-mill plugins like your compressors, your EQs, and all of that, I always tell people with the plugins, just pick a bundle and stick with it. You only need one. You only need one. And everyone asks me, which ones do I recommend? I always tell them that Slate All Access Pass, that's the only thing you need. And now they've bundled it with the SSL native stuff. So you get all the Slate stuff and all the SSL native stuff. You don't need any other plugins. You don't. You don't need them all. They all sound pretty much similar. They all sound great. All you need to do is pick one bundle and roll with it. And that's all the plugins you really ever need. with the exception of maybe a couple of these utility plugins like phase correction, auto align, and there's a few others, you know, slate trigger, you know, those kinds of things. But that's all you need. People that record guitars always record direct signal with it for reamping. Not always. I don't always get the DI tracks sent to me. Sometimes I do. And sometimes I reamp. What's your favorite 1176 hardware that I have? It would be the Audioscape 76A, the Blue Stripe. That's my favorite of the three. Here's a challenge for you, Dave. I want to see you mix a song and use every piece of outboard gear you have. I have more gear than I have faders. I think I counted, I have like 32 or 33 compressors, 33 channels of compression. I never use any more than, I don't even use half of that in a mix usually. So I don't even think I could physically patch it all in. I guess I could chain it all together. And I could probably do that. But that's so unbelievable overkill. It would ruin the mix. Would ruin it. When you work analog, I use way less processing than I ever did in the box. Ever. And that's largely because of the gear and largely because of the console. The console does so much of the heavy lifting, people don't realize how much of the heavy lifting it actually does, even though it doesn't have a dynamic section in it per se. But it does compress, and it does have a sound, and it does enhance the audio without a shadow of a doubt. Without a shadow of a doubt. So this does a lot of the heavy lifting. And then all the other pieces really are just sprinkling them in where you need them. But yeah, I don't even know if I'd be able to put them all on one mix. Got way more stuff than what I need. Mike says he really only uses plug-in aligns, plugins, and auto align. Yeah, plug-in aligns, great stuff too. I have all their stuff too. Those are great. So that's all you need. And you're right, Mike, that's all you need. If you have like a plug-in aligns bundle, like they used to have those bundles, I don't know if they still do. Yeah, they got all kinds of EQs, compressors, channel strips, everything de-essers, everything you need, reverbs, everything you need. Oh, you mean they should? Yes, they probably should. You're right. Jimmy says, I've never recorded DIs because I know exactly what I want when I'm recording myself. Right. Yeah, guitar players if I was recording someone else, I include the DI. Guitar players in general, at least the clients that I work with, they're very, very particular about their tone. They don't want their tone messed with. They pick their tone they're one of the few, yeah, it's one of the few elements of a mix that I change the least as far as a tone goes. Unless for some reason it doesn't sit in the mix right, but usually the bass tone, the core tone for guitar players, you do not want to mess with that. There's a reason, unless they, unless you've talked to them ahead of time and they give you free license, but guitar players are extremely picky about their tone. You change the tone radically, they don't like it. So I don't usually get a lot of DI tracks. Sometimes I do. Or I'll ask for them if they're available. But more times than not, at least with the clients I work with, the guitar sound they give me it's usually a really good guitar sound. And they like their tone. And there may be just a little bit of shaping to get it to sit in the mix right, but if they give me something that sounds like a Mesa Boogie amplifier, I'm not going to reamp it and make it sound like an AC30. You'll get fired. You know what I mean? But anyhow, you can use an 1176 chain with an opto compressor. I do that quite often. I use an 1176 with an opto on my lead vocals. James says sometimes he records a DI even if I know what I want to hear, but 90% of the time I don't like the sound of the next day and I record again. Yeah. Cool, man. Am I getting down to the end of the chat already? How many people we got here? Thank you so much, everybody, for joining tonight. We have 35 people. Wow, that's pretty awesome, man. Or there was 35 people. Let me refresh here. Oh, maybe we have more than that. Let's see. Nope, still 35. That's okay, though. 35 is cool, man. I really do appreciate everybody being here. Really do appreciate everybody being here. So, let's talk about this. It's been sitting here for an hour, right? So again, here's another piece that was given to me by our good buddies at Audioscape to do a review on. It's one I've asked them for because I've been wanting to try it. Again, I don't know if it's going to fit and I'm going to use it. We're going to see. But this is the decomp, which is really, let's see if it'll focus on there. Will it focus? It might. But this is the decomp. This is the TGI kind of replica, kind of like the Chandler stuff. And I'm really interested to try this. I've been wanting to try it for a while. And I finally had some built on the line and they sent me one. So I did an unboxing video for it the other day. I haven't even plugged it in yet. So I don't even know if it turns on. I'm sure it does. Gonna do a video on it. Don't know where it's gonna fit into my mess of stuff. But it's one I want, wanted to try because it is totally different than any other compressor I have. I just want to see if it fits. And if it doesn't fit, eventually it'll be given away as a prize. Probably at one point. We'll see. But yeah, so that's the turning around here so you guys can it can share some of the camera spotlight. Move it this way, right? I don't know if it'll be in focus, but that is the Audioscape decomp. Now, what's good about this, what's a new feature on this one, which is brand new, if you have an older unit, you don't have this, all the knobs are stepped. They're all detented. Every one of them. I guess the old ones weren't like that on all the knobs. I didn't know that. So that they made sure they pointed out to me that that's a new feature. So that's cool. It's built like a tank. It looks really nice. It'll be interesting to see what it sounds like. I have no idea what it sounds like, although I've been wanting to try this style of compressor. So we'll see. We'll see. So that's the only new thing that was coming in kind of unexpectedly. So I'm interested to see how it sounds, because it is something that I just don't have. I don't have anything like that in the rack. I'm sure it sounds great. It's just a matter of, does it fit into what I got? So I got too much shit here, man. I got too much stuff. Hey, Mark Dangle Nelson's here. Hey, Mark, good to see you again. Hope you're doing well. Loved your new videos that you put out recently. Really cool. Everybody show Mark a little bit of love. Thank you for joining. That was your idea, was it? Good, man. Thanks. Yeah, this is great. The only thing I don't have that I really want is a Fairchild, a 670. That is something I absolutely gotta have. I want to try a real one. I've never tried a real one. I've never been in a studio that had a real one. I've used every plugin under the sun of the Fairchild, and there's a few out there I really like. Universal Audio being one of the better ones. Although I'll tell you, the kit Blackbird Fairchild that they modeled, John McBride's one of his Fairchilds that he uses on Martina's vocal was just modeled. That sounded really great. I just did a video for that on the other channel. That's a nice one. And then the UA one I really like. But I've never been in the room with a real one. And so that's one that I'd love to get a hold of. And there's a few companies that make them. Stam Audio is one that we've been working together. They want to send me one at one point. Audioscape is going to be making one soon. Undertone is another one I'd love to. Eric Valentine's. I'm sure that's a great one. So that's one that I want. No, but I'm not spending 30 grand on the real Fairchild one because Uncle Dave doesn't have that kind of budget. I'd have to sell almost everything in here to be able to pay for it. But that's one of, like, for me, that's one that I would really love to have. And there'll be a point where I'll buy one of the, either a Stamchild or an Audioscape or or maybe an undertone, you know, would have to be under 10 grand for me. That would be something I would want. But Mark says a decomp is terrific. Is it? Oh, good. I hope it is. I'm sure it is. I've yet to try an Audioscape piece that wasn't good. I mean, I got them all. I got all their stuff. That LA3A, that new DA3A by Audioscape is killer too, man. That's a killer. That's an awesome piece. I love that thing on acoustic guitars, electric guitars, like, you know, kind of semi-clean, broken up, like telly kind of sounds. That LA3, man, or the DA3, perfect. For me, Unfair Child. That's the, isn't that the, that's the undertone, right? That's the Eric, that's Eric Valentine. That's his, right? I think that's what he calls it. A Fairchild got 40 grand? No, I don't have 40 grand to buy a real one. And I'm sure Fairchild's not going to send me one. I wouldn't expect anyone to send me one. But I bet you some of the other ones that are made out there sound really great too. I know, Mark, it's too much, right? It's too much, right? Tell me, you're someone that knows more than me. I got too many options now. There's too much here. It's okay. I'm not complaining. Like I said, you got to, unless you try the stuff for yourself, you just don't know. Watching YouTube videos is cool. I like when people watch my YouTube videos, but it's only one point of reference. You got to get in the room with this hardware stuff and try it. You know, it's the only way you know what you like and what you don't like. And everybody's got different, you know, different tastes. And I've been so fortunate to work with companies like Audioscape, who's been the biggest supporter of what I do here. And I love those guys. I talk to them regularly. Chris and Michael and Trevor and all the guys down there are just great. They're the best. You know, they've been the most supportive, certainly. And without companies like them, you know, and there's been others, you know, Stem Audio is another one, but Audioscape was the largest one. Without them, I wouldn't have been able to try a lot of this stuff, you know, and I'm so grateful because I learned a lot, man. And you really, I don't know. Mark would probably be able to know better than us, you know, learning how to use and understand the sound differences when you're working with analog as opposed to when you're working with plugins. It's just a different experience, man. The analog stuff for me could be a lot more fiddly, but in a good way. And it always seems to take a little longer for me to use the analog gear to realize what I like and what I don't like. When I was working all in the box with plugins, I knew pretty quickly with certain plugins what I liked and what I didn't like. It wasn't a big mystery. The analog stuff is different. For me, it is. I guess maybe it's the way the way it reacts, or just, you know, to be honest, you know, my limited experience with it. And the more I work with this stuff, the more I really understand it and really understand what I need to do to it to get it to sound the way I want it to sound, and then what works for me and what I like and what doesn't work. But I got too many options, Mark. I got too much shit here. I'm telling you, you guys mark my words. Within 12 to 18 months, maybe even sooner, a third of this stuff is going to be gone. I'm going to narrow it down, build some chains, have a few extra pieces to sprinkle around depending on what I'm working on, and I'm just going to learn that stuff to the best of my ability. And I'm pretty convinced that I'll be able to make, if I have great recorded songs, which I'm fortunate with the clients I work with, I get really good, well-produced, well-arranged stuff like by James D. Cooler and others, that the gear, it don't matter which of this stuff I use on that mix, it's going to sound great in the end. And in the end, that's all that really matters. And that'll also help me work faster because I won't be, you know, turning around and going, what should I use today? Although that's fun and all, but anyway. But yeah, I got too much stuff, man. The DA3A is good enough that VA3As are in my rack. Yeah, you like those DA3s, right? Ah, interesting. Okay, thank you for sharing that. I'm going to try. That's one of the first things I'm going to try it on in the video. What else? I mean, I'm going to do a whole video. We're going to do a bunch of sound demos, but yeah, that's great. Any knowledge that you can share with me on some of this from your experience, Mark, man, I really appreciate. It's going to be great. Yeah, Eric Valentine's Undertone Audio. That's right. That's right. Yep. Yeah, he makes that. He makes the Fairchild. Oh yeah, I've seen that. That's by Heritage Audio, right, Jason? The grandchild is the 500 series. I just wonder, and again, I don't know, my ignorance. I know there's no way. I mean, you look at the size of a Fairchild, and the reason why it's, you know, this big behemoth is because it's got massive transformers and 150 tubes in it, right? How do you squeeze all? Obviously, you can't squeeze all of that into a 500 series module. I wonder how close. Again, it's not going to sound like a full-fledged Fairchild, I wouldn't think. I just wonder, how good is it? I mean, it's like $2,000. It's not a ton of money. I don't know. You wonder how much of the sound they're really going to, I mean, how close are you going to get when you just can't physically pack all that stuff in a double wide? I don't know. I know, they're up to the ceiling, Braxel. They are. One of them, I almost have to stand on a step stool to reach the top of it. You know, but again, some of this gear, though, like I've told you guys, like by Z&H Designs and stuff, all that gear was given to me to be used as prize giveaways for future mixing contests. So some of this stuff is donated with the understanding of, I'm going to check it out. If I like it, I'll do some videos for it just to you know, to share the information. And then it's going to be given away. Some of this stuff, it was never intended for me to keep. I mean, I can keep it, but you just heard me go on a rant saying I really don't need to. So some of these racks, Braxel, are going to get emptied out because not all the gear is going to be there. Yeah, I don't know, Dave. Not really. I mean, I got 5 1176s. I mean, do you really need 5? 5 1176s. I got 2 1178s. I mean, there is some duplication here. Not a ton of it, but there is. There's some stuff here. You know, I got lots of VCA compression in here. I mean, I got lots of stuff. But it's fun. Thanks for the stream. You're very welcome, man. Thank you. There's space for one more rack just behind him. No. No more racks. See, it's people like you, James, that get me into trouble. Trying to tell me how I could fit more shit in this room. Well, you know why I don't have any power issues? Because at one time, I'll tell you why. When this room was purpose-built, long before it was just a mixing room, this used to be a tracking room studio. This, what you can't see on camera, this room is about 30 feet wide by about 16 feet. It's 30 feet deep, 16 feet wide. But what you don't see behind those racks, on the other side of the wall, there's 2 or 3 other rooms back there that we used to do, you know, guitar ISO cabinets. Right over here, you can't see it next to the Frankenstrat. There used to be there's a vocal booth here. This was a tracking room. So when I built this room, we put a whole separate electrical panel in, and we have more circuits down in this room. I mean, we went overkill because we had everything was wide open. I think I have on every wall in here. I mean, it's stupid. No one needs to do this, but on every wall in here, there are 3 4-way power plugs on each wall, all the way around the room. Each one of those walls goes to a dedicated circuit in the panel. So there is so much power down here that I don't have the issues, which is great. So it was purpose built when it was a tracking room. And so I don't have the power problems, which is nice. You know, I'm lucky, knock on wood, right? Agree. It's all about learning of hardware sounds. Yeah. Yeah, and it sounds way different. The other thing I learned too, Mark, and again, I know you know this, but one of the things that I've learned in this this whole journey on this channel, unlike the other channel where I've done the whole plugin thing for 10 years of teaching it and demos and comparisons, is that the analog stuff sounds so different. It's so different to me. There are some instances where the plugins are close and we can get into that whole debate, but there are certain things in the detail of the sound that you hear in the analog that I don't hear in plugins. It's not straight across the board, but in a lot of cases. And so, yeah, learning the gear and how you can tweak and push the gear to make it sound radically different. It's just an experience I never experienced when doing that with plugins as much. Not nearly as much, at least for me. So yeah, so it's taken me a couple of years of all this gear coming in and out of here and doing lots of mixes. And then lots of just in between, you know, making YouTube videos in between clients and coaching and all the stuff that I do. And I've said this before on live streams, and I encourage all of my followers and students to do this when time allows, where I'll take 2 or 3 days where I got nothing going on, and I'll just sit down here and take a piece of gear and run it through every single thing on every single element and push it and tweak it. And it's not a project. I don't care if it sounds like crap. The whole point is to make it sound like crap. You know, what can a distressor really do? And just go nuts on it and learn it. And then, you know, take mental notes of, oh, wow, I didn't realize it did that on this piano or whatever. I never thought to put a distressor on a piano, kind of a thing. I learned so much that way. And how you can bend the sound of some gear to make it sound different ways. And that just takes time and experience. And I've only been doing the real analog thing for only a few years. So I don't have the same amount of experience as someone like Mark here, who's been doing this his whole career. So it's taken me some time, but I've learned a ton, man. I've learned a ton about this stuff. I still got so much more to learn, but I've learned a lot. And I love it. It's a lot of fun. I learned it and it's a lot of fun. Bending audio with hardware is just more fun. Oh yeah, okay, there you go. Right. It is. It's just fun, man. And again, I'll say it again, for me, again, this is just my own opinion for what it's worth to anyone. The console to me, the console has the most impact on the sound. Even though I know this is a modern, it's an Origin, it's not an old classic one, it's not a Neve, and it's not an API, and I understand some of the differences, and I haven't worked on all those big desks, so I can't speak from firsthand experience. But I gotta tell you, man, because I run the 2 YouTube channels and I run a mixing membership website where we do things all in the box with plugins, and I do lots of training. So in other words, I mix a lot with just plugins, and I mix a lot with a console. And to me, for me, at least my opinion as I sit here today, maybe in a couple of years it'll change as I gather more experience and time. For me, the console makes the largest impact, man. It just does. It does something to audio that, and I just, you know, I realized it again just last month when I released the Mixing Masterclass Volume 2, which was all in the box. Or no, excuse me, I'm thinking the wrong course. When I did my my last mixing, I got so many things going, I apologize. When I did the latest content for my mixing membership website, which is an all-in-the-box training site. But on this last month, we used the SSL. We didn't use the EQ. We didn't use any hardware. All I used it for was, we used the bus compressor, but I just ran it out. I used the faders, used any processing we were going to do. We're in the box of plugins and then printed the mix back in on a stereo track. So we were basically using this as a summing mixer, but I wasn't using the filters. I wasn't using the EQ. I wasn't using any outboard gear. All I was using was the bus compressor, just clipping it a couple of dB and just running that mix through this thing. It sounds so different than if you were just working in the blocks and using channel strips, plugins. It's different. It's not like it's, you know, the plugins are terrible. They're not, but it's just different. And to me, that made the most impact. It makes the most impact. Oh, that's just me. That's just me. And the way you can push this console. And what I found was, ever since I started mixing on a console, there's so much less processing I do with hardware. Compression in particular. I don't use nearly as much compression as I used to use when I was just working in the box. I found I used a lot less pieces of compression because the console is like a compressor to a degree. I don't know if that makes sense. I don't know, Mark, does that make sense to you at all? Or am I completely... He's probably like, this dude has no idea what he's talking about. That's just my experience. As I go on and as I continue to learn, maybe, you know, my opinions change. And then I like to share them with people. But that's what I've learned, is that working in analog, you don't need nearly as much processing as I needed when I was working on the box with just plugins. Not nearly as much. And it just sounds so much richer to me. Anyway. It's like when I spent that, oh yeah, with that HE2, you spent hours with it. That looks like a fun EQ, man. Oh, the this thing on the drum. Yeah, that's Mark. That was the reason why I originally wanted to try it. I wanted to try it on drum bus because I've been recently using the Stam Audio 33, their SA609, which is their 33609 on drum bus, and also using on parallel drums. Love it, love it, love it. And I've heard this is really good on that too. So I'm interested in trying that. Okay, Mark, thank you so much for joining again and stopping in and saying hello. Appreciate what you do. Have a great holiday weekend. I believe this is a dial bridge. I believe it is. Undertone has a 500 series EQ. Oh, cool. I don't know much about that. Hey, Sans21, how are you, my friend? Hey, Dave, have you tried the Stam SA4000 MK3 with the Fairchild mod? I have one on the way. No, I have not, but I have, Josh from Stam Audio is supposed to be sending me all three of his SA4000s. One with the Fairchild mod, one with the Neve mod, and I think there's, is there any, I'm not sure if there's one with an API mod. There's a Neve mod, a Fairchild mod, and then the straight up SSL thing. He's supposed to be sending me all three of them. He wanted me to do a video or two or three comparing those all in one video, because he says one of the questions that he gets a lot of is, which mod do I buy? You know, when they go to order one, like, you looks like you got one with the Fairchild mod. So he wanted someone to make some videos where people can have some sound examples to kind of compare them, and that's what we're going to do. So I haven't tried it yet. You got one on the way. That's good. That must mean they're in their production. I've been waiting for those 3 units. So I will eventually have tried them. Again, I'm not going to keep all 3. I don't even know if I'm going to keep one of them based on everything we talked about tonight. But again, Josh has been great. He told me if I don't keep them, if I want to use them as prize giveaways, feel free to use them as prize giveaways. So that's going to be cool. So someone will get, if I ever get those units, someone will get 1 or 2 of those at one point. The grandchild has 4 tubes in it. Oh, that's that Heritage Audio. Sure, it's great. Oh, what do you, okay, so here you go. Sans21, what do you use the decomp on, and what do you like? What do you like it on the most? Mark said he likes it on overheads and drum bus. He said it's fantastic. What do you use it on? Give me some ideas. Higher Ground says 4 tubes sounds like a ton of heat in there. Yeah, the other thing you want to be careful with something like that grandchild, I think last time on a live stream, we talked about 500 series chassis and which ones do you buy and what's the difference between a $300 10 spacer and a $1,000 10 spacer. Some of that's going to be the power supply and the voltage, and making sure that whatever you put that grandchild into, it's going to be able to handle it. Because that seems like you got all the tubes now. Again, that's something to consider. Something to consider. Braxel says he loves his Audioscape AS78 and the 260VU. I love them both too, man. I love them both too. They're great. Doesn't CLA have like 10 1176s? Yeah, I think so. Well, you know, part of the reason why he has all that gear is because he has backups. He has all vintage stuff, from what I'm told and what I've seen him say on YouTube. Again, I don't have any inside scoop, but what I've seen is the reason why he has a lot of multiples of stuff is he has a lot of the vintage stuff and he needs backup and spares parts. I think that's why. You know, guys that are working at that level and they're working like him, you need to have 2 or 3 of everything. Because if you're in the middle of mixing a Fleetwood Mac record and an 1176 goes down, guess what? You better have 5 others you could plug into within 35 seconds. So I'm sure he does. He has a lot of gear. Not that other studios don't, but should I buy the AS76 or get the AS78? There is no AS76. Oh, you mean an audio? Oh, excuse me. Audioscape, a 76 or a 78. Well, the 78 stereo, or you can run it. You know, you can run it as well. You can't really run it. Well, you can't really run it dual mono in that the attack and release is shared by both channels. So you have one set of attack and releases. You can run it. In other words, you can't put it on the left channel. I'm going to put on a lead vocal, and the right channel I'm going to put on an acoustic guitar because the attack and release is shared. But you can run it in stereo, meaning the 2 channels are linked if you're putting on like a pair of overheads, or if you're putting on a set of rooms and you wanted to run them separate, you know. So consider that. Whereas, you know, the Z&H Design 1178, that has independent attack and release on both channels. That does something that the Audioscape one doesn't do. So I guess it depends. If you work with a lot of stereo tracks, let's say the AS78. If you're looking to use it on like a mono, I would say probably the 76. You could buy 270. I don't know what the prices are in the Audioscape stuff these days, but you can probably almost buy 276s for 178. Maybe you get 2 mono units. I don't know. You probably have an electric bill problem then. Well, yeah, I have an electric bill problem. My electric bill's not super high. People think, people ask me a lot when I first got the console, oh my God, is your bill like 5 times what it used to be? Because they're thinking of the old vintage desks where you had to keep them on all the time. They didn't like being shut down, the power supplies, and you just, you know, you had to have an air conditioning room or a machine room. You don't need any of that with a modern console. So my electric bill is not astronomical in the way you may think it is. And because it's part of my entire house, it's all on one bill. But yeah, since I set up a studio, has my electric bill going up? Yeah, a little bit. Sure it has. Is it a problem? Well, depends on what you define a problem as. CLA has everything. That's true. He does. Vintage King has the Undertone 500 EQ. Oh, okay, cool. See you, Larry Jason. Have a great holiday weekend. Thanks for joining. Good to see you. You love it on drums, synths, and keyboards. Okay, so you and Mark both said drums. That's going to be the first thing I'm going to try it on. Video will be coming soon. Coming soon. Yeah, that's right, Brax. So it's a little bit limiting because of you don't have the attack and release on both channels. But it's a great unit. I use it quite a bit. I like the AS78. I use it a lot on stereo. Like sometimes I'll use it like on stereo pianos. Overheads. I've used it on. Hey, even like big gangs of background vocals sound really good too. Like on a bus, you know what I mean? James says he's looking for a hardware EQ for my guitar bus. The ultraviolet EQ is your first idea, but I think it's too limiting. Can you recommend something else for guitar? Guitar like you do, like rock guitar, API. If it was me. If it was me. That's what I would get. API. For rock guitar. Big distorted guitars. That would be my first pick, would be API. Some people would say Neve 1073, but I think I would pick API. Like the 550 A's or B's or the 560 even. But yeah, those are killer on electric guitar. Especially big rock, like the stuff that you typically do, James, big rock guitars, that's what I would use. Or Dave says like the Cranbourne harmonic EQ. I've never heard that one, but that might be another option. Oh, you have APIs. Okay. So what's your problem? You want something different? Okay. Well, if you want something outside of the APIs, it's like a different flavor. Maybe David S.J. is right. Check those out. Or Neve. Or Neve. Right? That's different than API. Completely different sound. For mixing, I would still say, well, I mean, SSL's good. I mean, I would still say the same thing. I mean, when I mix electric guitars here, more times than not, they're with the SSL EQs. I think it sounds great. Sometimes I put them through the API 5500. I love those Cappy LC, what are they, LCR 25s, but those are API 560s. Oh yeah, the Mog, that would be good too, I think. I don't have the hardware of that, but I use the universal audio plugin of the EQ4 all the time. Not on guitars per se, usually on a bus of some kind. But yeah, that might be another one. It depends on what you're looking for. Like what, if you're looking for something totally different than API, because you already got API, yeah, then maybe SSL. Instead of the ultraviolet, go with the 500 series, what do they call it? The 611s, whatever, I forget the model number. It's the same EQ that's in here. The Black Series EQ, the same, I don't know the model offhand. I want to say it's the 611, but I could be wrong about that. But you can get the 500 series of the black knob EQs. Get a pair of those. If you already got API. Or Neve. Like I said, I like Neve too. Dave says Trident or Neve. Tridents are cool too. I got the 80Bs. Those are cool. They're affordable. Yeah, Neves are good too. Neves are good. Like the 1073s. Or the 1084s, those get pricey though. Those could get pricey for sure. For sure. Yeah, there you go. I mean, you can't go wrong if you go, you know, SSL, Neve, Trident. I mean, any one of those are going to sound great. It's just a matter of what kind of thing you're kind of looking for. You know what I mean? Okay, James says the main problem is you need 3 stereo units so I can track my API channel strips, okay? But I need something for mixing. That's why the ultraviolet EQ is a great option. Price is also but limited. Well, I don't know. I mean, how limited is it really? I mean, here's the thing, because you're a guitar player and you're also the guy that records and produces everything, you're already recording great guitar sounds on the way in. So, I mean, how much flexibility in the mix stage do you really need? I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, you're looking to really radically change the sound. If you're recording it on the way in through your APIs and you're getting kind of the overall EQ sound that you want, I think those ultraviolets might be good enough. Use the Plug-in Alliance EQ4 on vocals. Yep, great for when you need to pop the vocals through a dense mix. Yep. For buzz specifically, you say you would try the Cranborns. Yeah, you can check them out. I've never used them, so I can't tell you whether they're good or not. I can't imagine they're not good. I just don't know if you're, again, if you're looking for a very specific kind of a sound, James, then you may have to try a couple until it kind of hits you in the ear and you know what you want. Yeah, I use that EQ4 plugin too. I use the Universal Audio one, and it is great. That's one of the hardware EQs I always thought, geez, I really love to try that. But, you know, again, I don't need it, man. I don't need it. Get it right going in. That's right. Get it right going in. James does, though. I mean, I've mixed a number of his songs. His recordings are stupendous. Very, very good. His guitar tones, all his recordings are excellent. And that's why his mixes sound great when we're done with them. Because the recordings are great, and the arrangement is great, and the musicianship is great. So you put those three things together, I don't care what you use. You can use any brand EQ, any brand compressor, it almost doesn't matter. It's all just little sprinkles on the top, right? Hey, George, how are you? Did you find that your full count monitors sound better in the room positioned horizontally than vertically? Yes. I was trying to figure out horizontal, which is horizontal, which... Yes. I had them vertical at first, and I did like them. The problem was the tweeter was too high. I needed to get the tweeter down. And so that was the main thing. And I also found that I got a better stereo image this way. I like them more flat horizontally, so I did. But the main reason why I flipped them was because the tweeter was just too high. It wasn't the right height for me. He loves his Cranborn. Yeah, that's at H. Well, there you go. That's another one too. That's another one too. Yep, I would second that. James is a great. If you don't know James D. Kohler, you go watch any of the last gear demos on the channel. All his links are in the description box. Go check them out. And we're going to do more music on the channel too. We got more sessions we're going to do with him. James has been really gracious to give us those sessions. Also, in the next couple of mixing courses, it's going to be a lot of James music. And it sounds great. And the reason why it sounds great is because the songs are great. It's really that simple. And then again, I keep saying it. And again, the more I've always known this, but I've, you know, again, the tools almost really, in a lot of ways, don't matter, man. It really doesn't. If you got a well-recorded track with a good song, it's recorded and performed well, aside from this console that makes the biggest impact, as I said earlier, you can give me any of that stuff. This mix is going to sound great. It'll sound great. I don't care what you know. I mean, again, as long as you have there's a reason why, all the records that we've all grown up with over the last 50 years, you go into all those studios, they all got the same gear, right? They all got a console, or they did. They all got 1176s. They all got LA2s. Some have Fairchilds. They all have a couple of Pultecs. And then they may have one or two pieces floating around, and 33609 here or there. And the records sound great. So if you stick with the classic stuff, the staples, you can't go wrong. As long as you know how to mix and you have an ear and you know what you're doing. The rest of it is just all for us geeks to talk about what we like and what we don't like. But in the end, that's it. I told you, James, just buy if you just go buy the console, your problems are solved. You got enough room in there, right? And you'll have a lot of fun working on it. That's it. You see those videos Colt made about the Atmos? Good Lord. No, I haven't watched them. Way too much crap to set up. How in the heck is a normal person going to set that up in their house? They're not. They're not. No, I haven't seen his videos, but I know he's been setting up an Atmos room forever, but I don't really follow him much on YouTube, so I don't. I'll check it out now that you mention it because I'm interested. Most people are not. No offense, I cannot see Atmos for anything other than the theater or earbuds, period. Yeah, I don't know. I think eventually Atmos will be a thing. It's a thing now. I mean, it's not that it's not a thing. It's just not a... I haven't had a single client ask me about an Atmos mix, but I'm not working with A-list. I mean, I'm not working with industry A-list clients. I'm not working with those kinds of people who need those Atmos mixes. The people I'm working with, indie guys, then I've not had a single person ask me about one. Not one. Aside from the print track time as a downside, is running each track stem through a single channel on the SSL strip, slightly different settings, the same sound as an SSL console. Let me make sure I understand that question. Oh, okay. So if you had a single SSL channel and you mean running each track through and printing it back in, you could do that. I mean, you want to talk about a time suck. I mean, you could not be any more inefficient than that. You could do it. Is it going to be the same sound? I don't think it would be exactly the same because you're running like, for example, if a track's coming down on a single fader here, you're getting the circuitry of the preamp, the EQ, the circuitry of the channel, the master section, the compressor. It's going to be a little different. It's going to be a little different. It's the same kind of concept, but I don't know that it would sound exactly the same. I understand what you're saying. I've never tried that experiment side by side. You're basically baking in your analog to every track and printing it back in. But, you know, you want to talk about an enormous amount of time and effort to do that. You'll do that for 1 or 2 mixes, my friend, and you'll say, to hell with this. You won't do that. Try doing that on a 50 or 60 track session. But would it be the same exact thing? I don't think it would be the same exact thing. The way the audio, as it's all coming into the console and how the console as one big unit reacts to all those different audio sources. But I think it would be in that, probably in the spirit of that. It would be in the ballpark, maybe. See you later, John. Have a great weekend. You saw an interview with, oh, you mean Tom Lord Algae? I don't think it's going away. I think if you're at that level, if you're at the, you're at that level, you need to be into Atmos to some degree, or you need to be partnered up with an engineer who's into Atmos. Like I think Tom Lord Algae said he's just going to send his mix to his brother Chris to do the Dolby, because Chris has the Dolby room and Tom Lord Algae doesn't, not yet. But Tom Lord Algae just bought an Origin. He has an Origin in his second mix room. So I mean, if it's good enough for him, it's good enough for me. And he says he mixed lots of mixes on his Origin. He loves it. And he has an old SSL like his brother Chris. Yeah, I don't think Atmos is going to go away. I think over time, again, I always said that once you can get the real Atmos experience in a set of headphones, that's when it's going to change. Right now, you can't. It does not sound like a Dolby mix. Putting on a pair of headphones and listening to a binaural mix is not the same as sitting in a Dolby room listening to the mix. The experience is not even remotely close. I know that because I've tried it. Now, will it ever get closer? Probably. I mean, hell, with all the technology and AI and all this stuff, God only knows what they're going to come up with. That's when I think the game will change. When and if you could put a set of headphones on and it's that same experience as really sitting in a Dolby room or as close as it can get. I don't know how you do that. Technically, maybe there'll be something down the road. When that happens, that's when everybody's going to want a Dolby mix at every level of artist and musician. Got it. I have the other channel strips, Neve, but I only have one SSL vintage 4K strip along with the SSL mix bus comp. Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, you could try printing all your stuff back in one at a time, but I wouldn't do that. I go buy a console. I mean, really. If you want the sound of a console, the only way to get the true sound of a console is to have a console. Yes, you can use some summing mixers and you can use plugins and you can use some, you know, some outboard pieces of gear, but some of it gets close, right? It sounds great, but nothing sounds like this. At least in my experience. Again, that's just talking from one guy's experience. But I have a lot of experience when it comes to plugins and in the box and channel strips, and I've been teaching that stuff for years. I've been teaching the analog workflow in the DAW for 10 years. I am very well tuned in to analog style plugins, the way they work, and that analog kind of sounds. And it gets you close, gets you pretty close. Does it sound like this? No way. It just doesn't. And I don't care. Not to me, it doesn't. It just does not. And I know there's lots of engineers out there that say they can't tell the difference. And, you know, we've talked about this before on the channel, a lot of, the Andrew Sheps of the world and the Michael Browers of the world, who are, again, some of my heroes, and mad respect for guys like that sold all their gear and they use all plugins and say it sounds exactly the same. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. And it has nothing to do with, well, you got to have skills and stuff. And believe me, they got skills I'll never have. They have some of the greatest mix engineers that ever, been in the business. But I've done the experiment where you could just take an SSL channel strip, whatever company you want, I don't care whose company it is, put it on all your tracks, run audio through it. Don't do anything but run audio through it. Take those same tracks and run it through this thing and don't do anything. Don't touch a knob. Just run audio through it and listen to the two side by side. They don't sound the same. They don't sound the same. They just don't. The plugins sound bad. They don't sound the same. And that's why I just don't buy when people say, well, I figured out a way to, to put 400 plugins in my Pro Tools session in some, all these different combinations and jumping through all these hoops and everything. And it sounds just like my old vintage Neve consoles. I don't buy that. I'm sorry. I'd have to hear that for myself. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. So if you want the sound of a real SSL, the only way to do it is to get a real SSL or whatever console you like. But not everybody can have one. I get it. But the plugins are great. It's better than not using any. It's better than just using your stock plugins as far as this, that analog kind of sound. But I'm telling you, man, it does not sound like the real thing. It's in the ballpark. It sounds great. And in the end, people will say, well, the consumer doesn't matter. A great mix is a great mix. It doesn't matter what tools you use. I 100% agree with that. We talked about that tonight. I agree. It's absolutely right. But if you're just talking about the sound and say, well, the channel strip plugin sounds just like the console. No, it doesn't. It does not. That's my opinion. I run my quad Cortex through a pair of Cappy mic preamps. Oh, and it makes a ton of difference on the tone. That's interesting. You can prioritize the track that are the most important in the mix. Yes, you could do that. You don't have to run everything through. But here's the problem with that. And that's not, I shouldn't say the problem. That's the wrong thing, because Higher Grounds is right. Here's the thing to think about with that. The whole thing about that analog sound, let me say it this way, because I say it clearly. You have a 32 track session, and you're going to run your lead vocal, your snare drum, your main guitar sound, and another track, 4 or 5 tracks through the hardware and leave everything else in the box. Is that going to make the same impact? No. And the reason for that is, as a one-off track, the analog to a single track or to a pair of tracks in the mix with a bunch of other stuff that's not run through analog, it's not going to make as much of an audible impact. The real magic is when everything runs through it. It's like it's a compound effect, right? It's a compound effect. So if you really want, that's why I always say to people, if you're getting into hardware for the first time, what should you buy? I say start on the master bus. You want a piece of analog gear that everything is running through, because that's going to have the most sonic impact, at least in my experience, way more than just running one single compressor or an EQ on a single track. You know what I mean? But Higher Grounds is right. That is one way to consider it, is to say, look, I only have a limited piece of hardware. I am not going to run a 50-track Pro Tools session through it one at a time. I'm going to run it through my main instruments, and I'm going to treat those with that special analog stuff. Makes total sense. But it's not going to have the same impact as when you run everything through it, because it's all that stuff building up, if that makes sense. Is the SSL Sigma the same as the Origin? The SSL Sigma they don't make anymore. No, I don't believe, no, it's not. I believe the Sigma was like a summing box of sorts. Sound-wise, I don't know. I've never listened to one. They don't make it anymore, and they don't support it anymore. From what SSL told me directly. Don't know if that'll change in the future, but at least when they told me that. No, it's not the same as having a console that has 32 preamps, 32 EQs, right? It's not the same. It's not the same. But I haven't heard that specific unit. I've never used that specific unit. But I believe it's like a summing box of sorts. Yeah, Dave does kind of what you were talking about, Sans21. He does a lot of that pre-prep stuff. I don't know if he still does it at the same level he did before, but he would run everything through his hardware, print it all back in, and it works. But he'll sell you, it's very time consuming, because you got to run it all in real time. You got to run it all in real time. My Audioscape Pultec is a different universe compared to the UAD Pultec. Yeah. Imagine the SSL console versus a channel strip plugin. They'll never be close enough, impossible. Well, yeah, I agree, but then it comes down to, for everybody, what define close enough? For everybody, that's different. I agree that it's not the same, it's not close enough, but for some people, it is close enough. And that's totally cool, because I did that for years in the box, and it was way better than not doing it at all. But, yeah. And again, I don't know. I've watched enough YouTube videos from engineers telling me that their channel strip plugin sounds as good as the consoles that they work on. I've seen a lot of people say that. And again, I'm not saying that they're not telling the truth. That's not what they really believe. I'm just saying, I don't know. We all have different ears, man. I've done that test a bunch of times in this room. And I'm telling you, man, It's not even close. That's the thing that I can't get over. Like, I thought, okay, you know, close, if it's 75 or 80% of the way there, you'd say, wow, that's, you know, 80% is, hey, it's a lot more economical, you know? But I got to tell you, man, it's not even 80% there. I maybe it's 50% there. Depends on the channel strip you're talking about. I mean, when I did it, obviously I did SSLs because that's what I have. So I did the Waves one, the Plugin Alliance one, Universal Audio one, the Waves native plugin one, which is probably the best sounding one that I've heard. I've done that for their new 4KE. That's what this is based on. It sounds great. It doesn't sound like this. It just doesn't. It sounds good. Really does. But how close is it? I don't know, man. In my opinion, maybe it's 50 or 60% there. Maybe. I don't know. You know, and oddly enough, which David S.J. and I have talked about on this channel a couple of years ago a lot, was what a lot of people don't know, especially people that are new here. The ones that have been around here a while, you know what I'm about to say. But when I first bought a console and when I was getting into hardware, when we were planning it out, Dave and I, over Skype, chatting about it ad nauseum for weeks and weeks and months, 4 or 5 times a week, devising the plan before I ever bought the console, ever bought anything. I remember saying to him, the reason why I bought all this stuff at first had nothing to do with the sounds. And I remember saying to Dave will tell you this. I said to him, I don't care if the sound is 100% identical. I went into this whole journey thinking that it was going to be awfully close, that the plugins were good enough now because I heard all these famous engineers say how close it was. Some of them have their names, have their own artist series of plugins, so again, you can read into that what you want. But anyway, was saying they're close enough now that I didn't care if it was 100% identical to the digital. That's not why I bought this stuff originally. It was for the tactile workflow. That's why I bought it. If everything was equal and it sounded exactly the same, I didn't care. I wasn't expecting it to really sound any different, and I didn't care. I wanted the experience of putting my hands on gear, patching in gear, and working and mixing with faders and working with 2 hands and not clicking and opening and closing plugin windows. And for every person that says, well, just get a DAW controller, go watch Home Recording Made Easy's YouTube channel. I have tested every single DAW controller that's out on the market with the exception of the Avid stuff, but conceptually, I've had them all. I've tried to replicate in the digital the same hands-on workflow, and it's not even close to working on a desk. It's not. And I think I'm one of a few, if any, people that are on YouTube that has had both workstations in the room at the same time, and with the push of my chair across the room, I can go from one to the other just like that and be able to truly A/B them. They're not the same. They're not. They get you they push you towards the area of this, but it is not the same. It's not even close. And so I didn't care if the sound was identical. I wanted to experience the workflow and the speed, and I wanted to understand analog and how it's different. What I came to find out, and what Dave came to find out in the beginning, was after about, I don't know, Dave, what would you say, 3 or 4 months of working on this stuff regularly, I started to realize that not only is the sound different, it's way different. And we experienced that. The first time we experienced that was the very first day we turned on the console and put audio through it. You could go watch the videos. If you go back and watch the videos, Dave and I documented all of this, and we talked about it. And we ran audio through this thing, had no hardware hooked up, didn't touch a pot on the board. All Dave, I think Dave is the one that actually did it, David S.J. He just pushed up the faders and did a little bit of panning. We didn't even touch an EQ. And we used a session that I've mixed in the box 100 times through different courses, different YouTube demonstration videos, so on and so forth. So I knew the way the mix sounded in the box, and I mixed it with every freaking channel strip plugin there was. As soon as we put it up on this console, I'll never forget it. I heard something sound different, and I was a little reluctant to say anything because I didn't know, because I was trying to be objective. I didn't know, wait a minute, is my mind really tricking on me? Am I just thinking that it sounds better because we're looking at this console and it's kind of like a, you know, your mind's playing, your ears are playing tricks on you? And keep in mind, again, for people who don't know, we were using the same speakers. The console was in the identical position in the room as my in-the-box rig. My in-the-box rig used to be right here. The listening position was the same. At the time, the speakers were the same. Everything was the same. Everything. And I remember I wasn't sure if I was hearing it. Dave wasn't sure. And I remember we looked at each other simultaneously and went, wow, that almost sounds finished. We haven't even done anything to it yet. And that was my first clue to, wait a minute, something's different here. Something's different. And at the time, in hindsight, I realized now what it was. At the time, I just kind of brushed it off because we were in the middle of putting a whole studio together. We had cables all over the place. We kind of just said it in passing and didn't think much of it. But the more I got to working with this stuff, the more I was able to compare back and forth, and the more I was really be able to hear the differences and know what the differences really are. And there is a massive sound difference. There just is. And so I don't know. I just don't agree with anyone that says they sound the same and you can't tell the difference. I'd have to go to that person's studio and listen to that example. But in this studio, with this equipment and the tests that I've done, it's such a stark difference in sound that's mind-boggling. It's not that one's better than the other. They're just different. So anyway, that's your history lesson. So now you need to go back, if you haven't, and watch all those old videos of me and Dave setting this up and we talk about this stuff at nauseum multiple times because we were trying to convey what we were experiencing, because this whole YouTube channel was built on sharing our experience from two knuckleheads that knew nothing about this analog shit when we started, and we were learning on camera. That's what this whole channel was built upon and what it still is. Yeah, I do a lot more gear demos today, but it's sharing the knowledge that I've gained and the experience that I've had with people who want to know, who really want to learn about another person's perspective from someone who has no dog in the fight. And I'm not here trying to sell you my plugin or try to sell you my signature gear. I don't care if you buy any of this stuff or not. I've said it a million times. So I'm just sharing what we've learned. And so I think I have a unique perspective in that a lot of people don't have. And hopefully it helps you. Anyway, let's see. I know I'm missing some stuff, so let me see here. I know we talked about summing mixers, never use one. I heard it does not sound that great. I don't know. I don't know that it doesn't sound that great. I think it depends which one you buy and what you're expecting to get out of it. Does it sound like a console? No. People ask me, oh, get a summing mixer instead of a console. It's a cheaper solution. It's a way to put analog on your audio. It doesn't sound the same as a console. If I told my wife I was buying a console, I'd be moving out the following day. Well, then that's a problem, Mike, now isn't it? So you got to ask yourself. I won't say it. Yeah, I have no room for a console. I've tried. If I tried, my wife would be pissed and tell me that's not a warehouse for storage. Yep. You know, it's not that big. You know, a lot of people, I know it looks big on camera. It does. Ask David. He'll tell you he's been here. Now, I'm not going to tell you it's tiny. It's not. It's a 6-foot desk. It's not much bigger than a large computer desk. It really isn't. It's 72 inches by 42 inches deep. It's not a massive, like the old consoles of the the big SSLs that were like an aircraft carrier. It's not like that. It's not much bigger than a computer workstation, like a regular large desk. I know it looks, because I'm looking at it on the monitor. Every time I see it in videos, it does look impressive. It does look big. It's not as big as you think. This could fit in a 10 by 10 spare bedroom. I wouldn't say you're not going to have, it's going to be a little tight, but it would fit. Absolutely would fit. So room is not the problem. Room is not the problem. Cost might be the problem. Getting divorced might be the problem, but room is not the problem. Dave and I disagree on hardware and individual track concept, but I make up for it with the master bus. Yes. I was thinking about getting the SSL Bus Plus. I think Braxel has that because the plugin is good, but it's not the hardware. Yeah, I heard the Bus Plus is great. I haven't tried it. My Dangerous U24 desk is like a console, the way it looks. Well, there you go. How does the SSL plugin compare to the SSL real compressor? It's close. It doesn't sound just like the real hardware. It doesn't. It sounds similar. It's got that SSL sound, but it's not exactly the same as the hardware. It's not. Hours of conceptualizing and planning and all that, then it all changed. Yeah, about 3 times, right? 4 times. I remember you saying that you wanted to be able to turn knobs. Yes, I wanted the tactile feel, and it's way faster mixing this way too. Way faster. Way, way, way faster. Way faster. So it was all about for workflow for me. I'll bet those workstations are frustrating to set up. Given the expense, the Mark I Mini SSL seems like my best option for now. Oh, cool. They make an 8-channel console for 10 to 20. Please take a look and let me know what you think when possible. An 8-channel console for 20 grand? That seems like a lot for 8 channels. I'd have to look at it though. It didn't take that long, but we didn't acknowledge it right away. Dave was talking about the sounds. Yeah, we did. We kind of sat on it. We discussed it for a while. We didn't want to share it on YouTube until we were sure. We didn't want to just come out and say it. We wanted to be sure and transparent and really be thoughtful before we just said, oh, analog sounds better than digital, because that's not really the way we framed it. And that's, and we don't say better, we always say difference. But we wanted to make sure that we understood before we would say those things, because we didn't want to mislead people. I have both now and will be posting both workflows, start to finish, bedroom versus my full recording studio. Awesome. I can't wait to see it. Yeah. Yeah, it was about after 30 or 40 seconds of audio. That's true. Hey, Kate Pitchford, what's up? Hey, Uncle Dave. Hey, how are you? Good to see you. It's big once you add all the extras, hardware, gear, etc. It can get, oh yeah, I could take up some room. No question. Braxley, he has the SSL bus and he likes it. Dave, my experience with analog was exactly the same. Everyone's online said plugins were close, but that's not been my experience either, and it really is not that close. It's not. It's not. Hey, Doug, how are you? Oh, boy, you missed a lot, man. You have to go back and watch the replay because we're not staying on here another 2.5 hours to discuss it. The West Audio Bus Compressor and the SSL Bus Plus at different times of the year had a $500 off sale. Oh, that's pretty good, man. Yeah, you're going to start seeing things go on sale in the next few months, right? Black Friday, Christmas, all that's going to happen. That's okay, Braxel. All right, man, we've been on here 2.5 hours. Okay, I'm going to stay on for 5 more minutes. So if you have one question that you definitely need to ask me, now's the time to do it. Don't forget the SSL 16 is smaller, lighter, and currently only 36K. That's a good point there, George. They have this is the 32 frame, but they make a 16 frame for $36,000. It was, yeah, the original price was $40, right? And this is, I forget, I don't know what this one sells for new. I think 55. I bought it for less. They went up since I bought it. So I think it's 36, 20,000 more for the 32. Man, people have asked me that before. Would you buy the 16 if it was around when you bought the 32? And my answer at that time, and I think still is no. I really wanted to have a minimum of 24 faders. 32 was perfect for me. I think 36 grand for a 16 channel desk went for 20,000 more. Well, I said for 20,000. I mean, 20,000 is a lot of money, right? You can double the size. I don't know. But yes, if 55,000 is a little out of your budget, 36,000, you get 16 channels. You do that. And it's smaller. I mean, to George's point, it's half this, well, not half, it's just cut off one side. So now it's really the size of a traditional computer desk at that point. You know? It's a good console for the money. Dave, what will you do when your channels go down? Get it repaired. What would I do? It'll happen. Of course it'll happen. Analog gear eventually will need to be maintained. It will be. It will be. No question. Have to call a tech? Maybe not, though. The way these new modern consoles are, each one of these channels cards can be pulled out. So I guess it would depend. You could pull out a card, have it sent in, have it fixed. Or you can have a tech come out and do, yeah, you'd have to have someone either come out or you'd have to pull the part, send it. But yeah, yep, there is a risk of an expense of that will eventually happen with analog equipment. That's part of the game. That's part of it. But I've had this thing over 3 years now. I haven't had a single issue with it, knock on wood. So is it going to happen sooner or later? It's just part of it, man. The small origin could really be 32 inputs if you use the small faders. That's right, Chris. Yes. And they do have inserts as well, but the EQ on the board is it's shared, so it's either or. It can't be both. So yes, you could have 32 channels in mixdown because you can use the short faders, and you can have insert points on both the short and the long. So you're absolutely right. Very good point. Zone has become a good tech so far. That's good. We use a 16-channel mixer with the band and a multi-track live, and 16 channels just isn't enough. 24 would be minimum if you're going to buy a console. Well, again, like he said, Mike, if you bought the 16-channel Origin, it's 16 long faders, 16 short. So in essence, you have 32 channels in mixdown. So you could. No, this console is not modular. They make a 16-channel version of this now. They released that about a year or so after this came out. A year or two later, they put out a smaller version of it. But you got to buy it. You know, I can't call them up and say, give me 24-channel Origin. There's no such thing. 16 or 32. All right, James. Thank you so much for joining once again, brother. I appreciate you. All right, guys, I think I'm going to head out. It's time to get to bed soon for me and eat something. Again, thank you so much again for joining and for all of your input and sharing all your experiences. And I'm glad again that that you guys are all here. I really do appreciate you. And I will see you guys soon. Maybe not a month from now, maybe a little bit sooner than that, but we'll get together soon. In the meantime, stay close to the channel. Lots of videos coming. See you guys soon.